Good evening, fellow councillors and officers of the council. Welcome to this, the Audit and Governance Committee, held on the 12th of November 2025. Just to remind all members that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. I'm told there are no planned fire alarms scheduled, so if the alarm does go off, it's the real deal. I've had apologies from Councillor Marie Bailey and Richard Kingston, and I understand Councillor Hadley is late because she has to commute from Birmingham. Are there any further apologies? Not that we're aware of. Thank you very much. Item 2 then is the appointment of a vice chair. So can I ask the committee for nominations for vice chair? From the chair, I'd like to nominate Councillor Gareth Coates to be vice chair of the committee. Is there a seconder? Councillor Norkie? All those in favour? Are there any other nominations? Nope. In that case, congratulations, I think, Councillor Coates. Minutes of the previous meeting that held on the 24th of September 2025 are here for approval. So can I have a mover and a seconder for those minutes, please? Councillor Clark as mover, seconder, Councillor Coates. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Those are approved. Are there any... The next item is declarations of interest. Are there any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest that people wish to declare for this meeting? There being none, moving on then to external auditors' draft annual report. And it's a verbal update from our external auditors, Bishop Fleming, who I'm now told are not here. Can we defer the item either to further down the agenda if they are to make an appearance today, or if not to the next meeting of this, or to possibly to an extraordinary meeting of this, because this is important and we should have been dealing with it today. Item 6, comments, compliments and complaints performance report. The report of the leader of the council and the portfolio holder for housing, homelessness and planning. It says here, hand over to Nikki Hesketh.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start on this one if that's all right.
Yeah.
So the report covers Q2 from July to September 2025, and it provides an update on how we've managed comments, compliments and complaints across the council and my area, which is housing. In housing, 142 contacts were handled in this quarter, including 76 complaints, which is up from Q1. Most related to repairs, with delays in communication remaining the main themes. While Stage 2 complaint numbers have stayed consistent, Stage 1 volumes have risen, and only around 73% were answered within the target time frame. I just want to be clear that I'm not satisfied with our current performance on complaints. It's an area we need to do better on, and I'm meeting regularly with officers to work through issues, improve our responsiveness and ensure residents are getting the service they rightly expect. Just on a positive note, we have received 14 compliments for housing services this quarter, particularly for tenancy management, housing solutions and our ASB team, sorry, antisocial behaviour team. And we continue to use all the feedback to improve. The new tenant voice strategy is helping strengthen that engagement and ensure residents' experiences are shaping our services. So while there's still a lot of work to do, especially around complaint handling, I want to reassure members that this remains a priority area for me and for the housing team. Thank you.
If I can just go on to the corporate services complaints, that's my area of responsibility. So we had 175 corporate related contacts that were managed, with 27 complaints, 22 at Stage 1 and 5 at Stage 2. Both Stage 1 and Stage 2 complaints are slightly up from Q1, which again is not good, and we need to see that resolved. the majority of the corporate complaints related to the quality of service, particularly around council tax and revenues. And sometimes we can understand why we're getting complaints about certain areas, but we do need to get better at resolving them, and we don't want to see them going through to stage 2 complaints. Unfortunately, we only had 8 compliments, but that was, you know, it's still nice to receive compliments. So they were recognising good customer service and positive outcomes. There was a total of 106 general inquiries and 35 member inquiries handled in this quarter. The majority of compliments were directed, as I say, towards customer services and street scene, and it's nice to see the street scene people getting some compliments as well. Once again, not happy with a percentage of 72, but you know, there is members are aware of all the work that's going on, the differences that we're putting in place to try and up that, and the work around the front desk does make a difference to how people are able to interact with us. So if there are any questions.
Right, thank you. Are there any questions? David?
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions. I thought it was really good report, and you know, just huge amounts of detail in there. Just a couple of questions from me. One was in terms of housing. The housing sector, there's a huge amount going on in terms of customer focus at the moment, and I wondered whether or not we benchmarked and used any of that to help us, just in terms of, it's quite difficult because every housing portfolio is different, but I wondered if we did that. And the second was, there was 3 gas complaints that went over the timescale, and I just wanted to make sure that the issue had been dealt with. It was the complaint that was late, not resolving the issue. Thank you.
Is there a response to that?
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the benchmarking, we are, and the housing side particularly, we work with the housing regulator and we abide by the ombudsman, the housing ombudsman's complaint handling code, so we can then benchmark against other organisations in there. As we come through the months in this, the quarters of this report, we will show some benchmarking results within the report. Secondly, about the gas, it is the complaint that's took longer to handle rather than the actual issue in the well, I hope. We haven't heard anything more. So.
Is that satisfactory, David? Yep. Any other questions from the committee? There being no further questions, I'll read out the recommendations and ask for a vote on it. To endorse the Q2 comments, compliments and complaints performance report for the period 1st of July 2025 to the 30th of September 25, and recommend the report be referred to Cabinet for further consideration and endorsement. Can I have someone prepared to move both? Thank you, Councillor Coates. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Thank you very much.
Chair, now that we do have our external auditor here, are you okay to move your motion under Rule 13.1C and change the order of business? And here, this is the next item. As soon as you moved it, we just need a seconder. If you'd be happy to proceed with that.
I would be happy to get this report dealt with, yes. So sorry, I've no idea what that rule was, but what do I need to do?
We just need a seconder, yes, please.
Can I have a seconder then? Yes, thank you, Councillor Clark. And all those in favour? Thank you. So, welcome. Apologies. Yes. What we did was to, in your absence, we moved item 5 down below item 6 in order that we could get some more business done. But now, if it's convenient, I'd like to refer now to the external auditor's draft annual report.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. there are 3 areas as required by the code, which is issued by the National Audit Office. One of them is, there are 3 of them, which is financial sustainability of the council. Second is the governance, how the council makes an informed decisions when carrying out their governance element. And the third is improving economy, efficiency, and effectiveness in using the resources of the council. So so we have carried out our review and of these 3 areas and the arrangement in place in relation to the council resources. And if you refer to the page 7 of your agenda of the papers, you can see there is a table mentioned which presents our results of the VFM work which we have carried out, which is value for money. The financial sustainability, there's no risk of significant weakness identified, and there's no recommendation made. So the councils, that's why we put green. The governance remains amber because we haven't identified any issues with 2024-25, which is the period under review, but there is a prior year recommendations remain in progress. So that's why we have to keep that as an amber, because this one has been not resolved during 24-25. And the third was in improving efficiency. Again, no issues identified from our review. It seems like the councils have effective arrangements around their use of resources of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. The other important bit from the perspective was this report is in a draft. It's not finalized. The reason is, the main thing is, like, we are required by the code that we should present our review of the VFM in November. So it's kind of a deadline for the auditors to present that to the members of the audit committee. And we cannot issue a final until we sign off or we give our opinion on the financial statements, which is currently under progress. That's why it presented as a draft to the member. It's just so from a perspective of its process is whether to approve. It's not in a final form, so you cannot approve it. We will issue the final version when we sign off the financial statement, when we give our independent audit opinion on the financial statements. If you go to page 10 of your pack, we provided detailed commentary on financial sustainability, and we delve in details about how the council has performed during 24-25, what was the financial planning used to before the start of 24-25, and then the area which is how the budget setting, how the council have arrangement and processes to achieve their efficiency targets during the year, and the final one, how the medium-term financial strategy or plan council has set up for the next 3 to 4 years, and are there any significant gaps where is an issue with regards to funding gap which will cause any risk of significant weakness. Our review and our work has not identified any significant risk of significant weakness, so it's a good report from our perspective for the arrangement placed with regards to financial sustainability. If you move to page 13 of your pack, this area we talked about. We reviewed the governance. We carried out our review of the risk management, the controls, how the third line of defense work within the council framework, how the members take their decisions, how the information is presented, how many times the council take, what are the budgetary controls, how those budgets have been consulted and discussed, and then making those decisions based on the information presented to the members and to the governance to make informed decisions. Furthermore, there's one area we touched base on this governance about local government reorganizations, which is at the moment is quite hot topic from the perspective of the reorganizations coming in April 2028. we touch, although it's not relevant for 24-25, it's just for the hindsight in the future that there are on the horizon, and it will be implications on the services that provided by the council, and what current in the news, the merging of different councils into one different unitary councils. Within that, we have mentioned about the recommendation coming from the prior year recommendation. So we had discussed with the management, restructuring of the senior management is currently going on, although it was not happened. We are in 25-26, but this information is for 24-25. But there are vacancies, there are certain restructuring happening, there are certain hiring going on. This is between 25-26. So from our perspective for 24-25, it was not implemented. That's why it remains under progress. When we move to 25-26 audit, hopefully this area will be resolved and there will be no issue in next year. And the last element is the element of our VFM commentary is improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness within the use of council resources. It includes service delivery, procurement, partnership with other councils, with other local government bodies, with other government bodies, and we have not found any risk of significant weakness with regards to these arrangements. Then there is no issue on the procurement issues, there's no commissioning issues, and we have reviewed the procurement policy. These are, from our perspective, are effective procurement policy with the financial delegations, with the limits, the sets of limit, who can approve how much. So from our perspective, no issue to report on this area of value for money. Happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you for that. I do have one point of clarification. Are we saying that the amber rating in terms of governance that you indicated earlier on is a question of timing, and that if we carried out the same series of tests now, that we'd have had assurance on that? Is that what we're saying?
From our perspective, when we discuss with the management, it seems a yes point. So there are our recruitment happened during the year. So I think when we discuss with the management, by the end of this year, they will have all the position filled, and they will be available to perform, and it will be considered. So at this point of time, I think there, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, so there are one or two vacancies still not filled. So when that get filled, it means the senior management is properly in place. The management is properly in place.
Right, so there is nothing for us to be overly concerned about.
No. So amber rating is if you look from the value for money perspective, amber is like a recommendation which helps the council to have a good governance. So it doesn't mean that it's like an alarm bell. If it goes to red, then it's an issue. It doesn't say as a weakness. It says a recommendation to have a good, improved version.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can just provide a little more detail around that. It was an improvement recommendation that our previous auditors made, relating to a report that the LGA had done around workforce development within the finance team to try to address some of the recruitment challenges. There may be some parts of that which are relevant to a district council like ours, but possibly not all. So we did commit to review the report and implement any recommendations that might be relevant to us. But as you know, we've had staff vacancies, interim arrangements and temporary staff. So it was felt that until we've got all the officers in post and we know where we're going, then we'd pick it up and look at it at that point. Thank you.
Well, the question that raises for me is, with local government reorganisation just down the line, might that impact on recruitment and indeed retention of staff?
Thank you. Just to let you know, we've recently advertised for an assistant director and a head of finance post, and we've had a good response. So quite confident that we'll be able to recruit successfully.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? David?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased we've just understood that in a bit more detail, because that open action I'd also just wanted to understand. I had a question on the procurement strategy, where in your report you note that between 0 and 4,999 we don't need a written contract. I just wanted assurance that although we don't have a written contract, we do have a written record of what we've agreed and why people should get paid, and you know that there's a check and balance there in terms of spending council money. I'm sure there will be, but since it was there, I just thought it was worth seeking assurance.
Thank you. So yes, our procurement guidance would require managers to maintain a record of any quotes below the full tender threshold. They're still required to keep records for that audit trail.
Thank you.
It's a useful reminder, David. That's why you're here. Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, it's I think it's chapter 5 or part 5, page 10 about the money. Is it? I just want it in layman's terms, basically. That part saying, is it basically we're favourable of £500,000? Does that mean that we weren't in debt for the year, or what does that basically mean to someone that doesn't know finance?
So that would be an underspend. It's favourable in that context.
Took me a while to understand what favourable variances were. We're all right. Any other questions on that? So what are we being asked to do today, Joe? Can you clarify for us, please?
I think it's for the committee to accept the report from the external auditors.
Yes, it's to, I think it's a committee to, review what we're going to issue in the final version. So, because there will be not another committees who present, so from the perspective, it's for your consideration and noting.
But this is just a draft report, isn't it?
That's right. So it's, you cannot approve it at this point
So
of time.
we can't approve the report.
Yeah.
But we can note it.
Yes, let's say the word is noted. It's kind of not a good point from the perspective of governance, but this is being dictated by our regulators. And if we don't do that, we will be penalised for that. So it's an instruction. It's a target for auditors to present all their auditors' annual report in November, by the end of November. So we have to be make sure that we comply with those instructions from our regulators, which is National Audit Office.
And will this committee have sight of the final report?
Yes, it will. So we will communicate to the management, and they will distribute the final version to you guys, along with the audit completion report or the financial statements.
So if we're just noting, there's no need to go to a vote, is there? Not really.
No.
No. Right, well, thank you for that, and we're meeting after this, aren't we? Yeah. Gareth, can you stay afterwards as well? Yep, thank you. Moving on then, thank you for that, Mohammed.
I do apologise for the delay.
That's all right. It was worth the wait. Item 7 then, we've dealt with item 6 already. Item 7, Q2 Information Governance Update, the report of the portfolio holder for finance and ICT. And this time I am handing over to you, aren't I, Nikki?
Thank you, Chair. You are indeed. Thank you, Chair. The report this evening provides an overview of the key activities and performance for information governance. It includes updates for performance statistics, your compliance rates with statutory requests. We've got some policy and procedure updates and staff training, and a response to any legislation changes. We continue our proactive approach, and this affirms our commitment to that regulatory compliance and transparency. And we have provided a full report, which is available at Appendix 1. It is asked this evening that committee is to recommend that report be referred to Cabinet for consideration and endorsement. I think I'd like to hand over to committee if they've got any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Any questions from the committee? David.
Sorry, I'm new, so some of my questions may be for clarification, so I apologise if that's the case. It's a really thorough report, which is really good. Just in terms of the breaches that have been recorded, there was a couple of points. One is the assurance that we've got to root cause in terms of each of those, and then secondly, I think it says that the majority will be human error, and I just the thing that came up for me was whether or not that might mean there's a bit of a training need in some areas. Yeah, so.
No, thank you. Yeah, so in terms of the breaches, yes, majority of them were due to human error, that might block a misdirected email. None of those breaches meet the threshold to report to the ICO, and advice and support and further training is provided to support and mitigate those risks going forward and to manage those effectively.
Thank you.
You stole my thunder on that one, David. That's what I was going to say. Any other questions to Nikki on this? Everybody content? The recommendations are that we endorse the Q2 Information Governance Update for the period 1st of July to 30th of September 2025 and recommend the report be referred to Cabinet for further consideration and endorsement. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Coates and a seconder. Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 8, internal audit Q2 progress report, and I'm handing over to BDO in the form of Faye and Max.
Thank you, Chair. Before I move into the progress report, I did want to start with just a few quick introductions to us, myself, Faye and BDO as well, because I appreciate whilst we have been working with the Council on a co-source basis over the last 3 years, this is the first time we've been in this forum and you've seen us at the Audit Committee. So, and I appreciate this is a change for the Council as well, moving from an in-house model to an outsourced function. So BDO as a firm are a national firm. We're a global firm, but nationally we operate across 18 offices, all across England and Scotland. However, the team that you will see, the team that Faye and I are part of, are public sector internal audit specialists, and we are Midlands based. We're very much a Midlands local team. In fact, both Faye and I live within sort of 20 minutes, 25 minutes of here. So that helps us to be out on site and get to know our local areas. Your new head of internal audit will be Gurpreet Dulay, who's the engagement partner, and he is the partner that both Faye and I report into. He leads our Midlands public sector internal audit team. And across Gurpreet's portfolio, he's got around 11 to 12 blend of outsourced and co-sourced local government clients. So we really are experts in the local government sphere. Nationally, we've got over 50. So we've got access to resources nationally with that expertise. In terms of Faye and I, as I say, we've been working on a co-source basis. Faye and I have been the constant throughout that. So we've both been managing and overseeing the engagement, again, reporting to Gurpreet, but working with Andrew and Rebecca, our predecessors who sat in these seats. And then the IT audit arrangements are the same as before. So there's a legacy model where there's a separate provider who looks at IT specifically, and we are for the general audit side of things. Moving into the progress report, I'm going to start at the end. So I'm going to start on page 83 of your packs, because this probably is the key difference you can expect to see between what you've had before and the outsourced BDO methodology. And that is around our opinions. So everything else will be reasonably the same, the processes, the progress report, but the opinions will slightly differ. So what you've got in the packs this time around is what we've titled the TBC, Tamworth Borough Council methodology, where you've got one opinion, which is substantial, reasonable, limited, or no. What you will see going forward, which is an appendix to the BDO methodology, is an opinion for both the design of controls and the effectiveness of controls. So where we say design, essentially what we're saying is, are controls set up how they should be? And then effectiveness is, are those processes and controls then followed how they should be? So you'll get that split opinion, but the actual levels of assurance are reasonably similar, where you've got substantial, moderate, limited, and no. So there's not a huge difference, but I thought I would draw your attention to that going forward. Moving back into the actual start of the progress report. So the structure again is reasonably similar to what you're used to, just slightly different BDO branding. On page 66 of your packs, what we've provided is a table showing the delivery against the internal audit plan for 2025-26. And the reviews that have been completed so far are a blend of reviews that started under the in-house function. Some of those are being co-sourced, delivered by us as BDO, and then some are delivered by the IT provider. Going forward, they will all be done by on the BDO templates and through BDO's quality review processes. And then what you've also got in the progress report is our executive summaries of the 4 audits that were completed in the last quarter, which between Faye and I will give a brief summary of and then open up to questions. So if it's okay, we'll present all 4 reports. I'll present the first 2, Faye will present the second 2, and then we'll pause for questions on all of them in one go. So the first report is the IT network infrastructure review. So this is one actually that wasn't performed by ourselves as BDO. This is by the IT providers. So I will apologise at this point to say if there's any specific questions, I may have to defer to colleagues outside of the meeting and come back to you. But I'll give a quick summary as to what the headlines of the report were. So a substantial assurance opinion was given with 1 medium finding, 3 low findings. And this review was looking at the council's IT network infrastructure, so the responsibility of managing equipment, the record keeping of key IT and networking equipment, configurations around systems for monitoring alerts and notifications, and those sorts of areas. I'll draw your attention straight to the medium finding, which is the more significant out of the 4, which relates to outdated documentation and essentially a contract or a maintenance agreement not being signed with a service provider. Similarly, with the other low recommendations, there's a theme slightly around the outdated documentation for the IT skills matrix, alerts not being generated for the CPU, and then the functionality of the site engine tool not being fully utilised. What's positive to see, again, being slightly independent to this, where we haven't done this review, is the positive comments by management where the recommendations have been accepted. So if there's any specific questions on that, I'll bring in Joe to kindly support on those. The second review relates to treasury management. So this is a review of essentially the council's management of its treasury investments, complying with statutory guidance set by SIPFA and the Treasury Management Strategy, which is an internal document, and then looking at a sample of fixed investments, money market investments, and money market repayments, essentially to see has the process that the council have got internally within its strategy and policies been complied with. And that relates to separation of duties, approvals, and the documenting of those within the counterparty limits that are set within the strategy. So this review receives substantial assurance, which is a positive level of assurance with 2 low findings. So where we say low findings, generally I probably classify these as housekeeping, where there is an issue raised. Having said that, we don't believe there's an immediate risk or threat to objectives, but actually going forward, putting some controls in there I think would add value and benefit the council. So just to pick up at a high level on those 2 low findings. So one related to the treasury management practices, so TMP5, which outlines the organisation chart for responsibilities and tasks. This wasn't up to date. So there was one individual who approves treasury management processes which was not included in that chart. So for completeness, updating that, make sure it's accurate, helps to make clear distinctions as to whose role is what. Secondly, the authorised signatory listing. So the approvals listing did not include the temporary chief accountant. Joe, you may be able to confirm this, but I understand that individuals now left council. Is that correct? But again, updating that whilst there is temporary changes to ensure that transactions are being approved by the right people is an important step for completeness. I will pause there and bring in my colleague Faye, who will introduce the next two audit reports before we pause for questions.
Hello all, I'm Faye, nice to meet you. I'll now present the Housing and Council Tax Benefit and Performance Management reports. So starting with Housing and Council Tax Benefit, this was a substantial opinion, so the highest level of assurance, and there was one medium finding. So in this audit we performed numerous tests, as you can see in the report, including a test of benefit applications, overpayments, discretionary payments and reconciliations to see that they adhered to policy. As this was a substantial report, there was a lot of good practice, so I'll quickly touch on a few of those things. For new claims that we looked into, the process was followed correctly with justifiable reasons for the claim, and for overpayments, just under 50% of the overpayments had been fully recouped, with the others on a schedule for repayment or being pursued by the DWP. The medium finding presented in this report was to do with a delayed reconciliation. So for reconciliations, usually we would expect around the month following the reconciliation to be the time that it's completed by. So in 4 instances, we saw that it took more than 36 working days, increasing the risk of undetected error or fraud. These recommendations have been partially accepted, with the commitment to complete by the month end, and the Head of Finance looking into the recommendation to substitute an individual to complete the task in the instance of someone being on leave. Moving on to performance management, we gave a reasonable assurance for this report, and there were 2 medium findings. So this audit was to look at how the council looks through and monitors the performance of different service areas across the council. So again, I won't go through all of the details of good practice, but there was a robust performance management process identified, and also a dedicated system to provide updates for KPIs in real time. The first finding was around there not being a formal process in place to centrally validate that the data input into the system is correct and any calculations used to derive the KPI that's presented. This can pose a risk that the data might be inaccurate or manipulated, and the recommendations we've posed in this area have been accepted to ensure that there are proportional checks over this data. The second finding is that there's not a formalised approach to improving underperformance, so any KPIs that are under the target, through agreeing smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound action plans. The recommendations again have been accepted to enhance improvement plans that already exist to incorporate the elements of the action plan that we have recommended. And then finally, in our progress report, we do have a sector update section, which is just news in the local sphere. Thank you. I can open to questions now.
Right, thank you both for that. There are a couple of themes that came out for me. One is around general governance and process, and they need to be tightened up. I saw it as a recurring theme all the way through. And the second point that occurred to me, and it leapt off the page at me when I first read it, is there's not a formalised approach to improving underperformance. Now, in my organisation, that wouldn't be acceptable, so I'm just wondering what it is, why that's found to be medium, and what we can do about it.
Yeah, so in the finding here, it was that there's not a kind of detailed approach. So when there is a service area that is below the KPI target, what must they do? We would expect that there's an action plan with a time for completion, a responsible officer, that kind of thing. At the moment, there was something called an improvement plan, but it didn't have those aspects that we would expect. So management in their response have said that they'll enhance these plans that they previously had to make sure that they hit those thresholds that we expect.
So it's being addressed
Yes.
as we speak, as it were.
Yes, it should be.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from any other member of the committee? David, I'd be surprised if you didn't come up with something.
I'm sorry. Just to start with, I thought the report's really easy to read, actually, even for somebody who doesn't really know the organisation inside out, so thank you. The first question was, in terms of the audit programme, it's clearly a transition, and you seem to have picked that up really well. Are you going to finish the programme? That's the first thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the transition, I think it was partly helped by the fact that we did have those existing relationships across the management team already, being the co-source providers. But actually, I think it's probably fair to say in this forum that the transition from our end has been very much supported by the management team as well. So Faye, Gurpreet and I attended a management leadership team meeting last week to introduce ourselves formally. Been regularly in contact with Joe as well over that transition exercise, which has helped get reports to this stage, albeit we only became the fully outsourced providers in October. To answer the important question, which is will we complete the plan by the end of the year, the answer is yes, essentially. So we, since taking the role as the outsourced providers, we've been working hard to schedule the remaining audits throughout the year, and you can see from the table on page 66, these are the timelines for when you can expect as a committee to receive the reports for the remaining reviews. So most of those drop into early 2026 up to June 2026, which is when we'll also bring our head of internal audit opinion. So we are very much working to those timescales, and actually just to say within this meeting, the transition's been very easy and management have worked well with us to help us get to those timelines as well.
Thank you. So there was just a couple of detailed questions, if that's all right, and apologies if it's moved on. So in the IT report, which you refer to, sorry, there was a particular reference to something in an update in August, awaiting a new contract, and the update says this is the status in August. It was outstanding. I just thought it was worth us clarifying whether that's now closed and in place.
I will refer to management colleagues on that question, if that's okay, in terms of the update on that contract. So it's the Service Express contract.
Yeah, it's the top one in that report in the areas of concern.
Can we answer that?
Unfortunately not. I don't have that detail, but I can get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you. I just since we were 3 months on since the report, I thought it was worth asking.
Can I just ask it before we move on from that? Can we have a written report to all of us to give assurance on that update? Thank you. Sorry, David.
Sorry, there's some of the points that I'd noted that you closed out in your summaries, which was really helpful. I think that's it from me, actually. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Coates, you weren't indicating, you were just waving generally. Yeah. Are there any other questions from the committee? Now the recommendation is, I think that what do we have to do here? We have to note the report. And what is the effect of us noting the report? What does that mean?
I believe it's just to note the progress against the internal audit plan for the year, essentially. So as a committee, I'm not sure, I'll defer to colleagues on whether the vote needs to happen, but from our perspective, it's to note the progress and be satisfied you've scrutinised progress as well.
I mean, as a recommendation, that makes more sense to note the progress. It would make more sense to me than noting the report. It says here I do need to ask for a mover and seconder, so I will do that. Councillor Clark, thank you for moving. Seconder. Councillor Coates, all those in favour? Thank you very much for your input today. You're more than welcome to stay, but if you feel the urge to move elsewhere.
Yeah, we'll both stay, yeah.
Okay, moving on to Joe. I think you're going to be for the next couple of items, aren't you? Moving on to the counter fraud update. Joe.
That's right. Thank you. So this report is to provide the committee with an update on counter fraud and to seek approval for the updated policies for counter fraud, whistleblowing, anti-money laundering and prevention of the facilitation of tax evasion. So as reported in the 24-25 annual internal audit report, no allegations of potential fraud have been received during the year. One whistleblowing allegation was received during the period but was not fraud related. So as well as operation of the overall system of control, counter fraud work this financial year has included National Fraud Initiative, NFI, the Cabinet Office's National Data Matching Service. Following the new arrangements for the delivery of internal audit via an extension of the co-source arrangements to include head of internal audit functions, the Council's fraud-related policies required review. The policies, which have been aligned with Lichfield District Councils as part of the new arrangements and shared service, are detailed for the committee's approval. So there's the Counter Fraud and Corruption Policy Statement, Strategy and Guidance Notes at Appendix 1. The confidential reporting whistleblowing policy at Appendix 2, anti-money laundering policy at Appendix 3, and prevention of the facilitation of tax evasion policy at Appendix 4. So updates are around the reassignment of roles and responsibilities reflecting the new internal audit arrangements. Subsequent to the endorsement of the appendices, these will be communicated to all staff and made available on the Council's intranet site. So it's recommended that committee endorse the contents of the report and the refreshed policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? I'm trying really hard not to look at you, David. Are there any questions from the committee? David.
I'm sorry, I'm clearly getting a reputation. It's only my second meeting, actually. I thought, in terms of policy, I thought they were great actually. In terms of the way they're structured, because sometimes they get kind of smashed together and jumbled, and they're not. And also sometimes there's too many, but I thought they were all really, really coherent. So my only question, actually, I don't have anything to add to any of them. My only question was, in terms of staff rollout, because they are really quite long and comprehensive, how do we make sure that that knowledge is current for everybody? Thank you.
Thank you. So we use an online system called Astute, where we do lots of training. So the policies will be made available on our Astute system. So staff then have to read them and demonstrate that they have read them. It's like an online thing. Sometimes we have like little quiz questions following that as well to kind of test understanding. So they would normally go through that format. And of course, like I say, they'll be on the website as well, so they can be referred to any time.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Clark.
Small detail. Is it cyclical? Do they? Is it an annual event, or to make sure that people are updated?
So the policies themselves, these ones will be reviewed on a three-yearly time frame. So each time there would be a significant refresh, then we would roll them out again, so staff get the updates.
Any other questions? I actually thought this report was very clear and coherent. I was quite impressed by it. Okay, so the recommendation is that we endorse the contents of this counter-fraud update report and the refresh policies it contains. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Coates and a seconder. Councillor Hadley. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. No rest for the wicked, Joe. Report of the risk management quarter 2 update, and it's from you again, Joe.
It is indeed. Thank you. So this is the regular quarterly risk management update for committee for quarter 2 of the 25-26 financial year. So one of the functions of the Audit and Governance Committee is to monitor the effectiveness of the authority's strategic risk management arrangements. This report includes the actions taken to manage those risks and raises any issues of concern that may impact the authority. Corporate risks are identified, managed and monitored by the corporate management team on a quarterly basis. A copy of the current corporate risk register is attached at Appendix 1. CMT have reviewed the risk matrices and scores and updated the notes and risk control measures. Revised scores can be seen in Appendix 2. So the high risk profile for 25-26 has reduced from 70% to 60% following the risk control measures adopted. The remaining 40% of the risks have been scored as medium. So this quarter, the risk scores for the following risks have reduced. Risk 3, supporting communities to be inclusive, connected and engaged, as a result of no direct intelligence to suggest imminent protests in Tamworth and no incidents in August, where we were expecting perhaps the holiday inn could be a flashpoint again. Risk 5, organisational resilience and capacity. Staff turnover is being monitored, but there's no impact currently being felt, and the senior manager review is on track. And risk 10, challenges of local government reorganisation and community governance structures. That risk was felt to be reduced due to additional resourcing and the risk control measures put in place. The committee is asked to endorse the corporate risk register. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether to be concerned about the fact that there are no green ones here at all, or not, really. Are there any questions from the committee on this? You may be looking in vain, David. David.
Thank you, Chair. So I thought the format of this is really good. I mean, I like the severity likelihood. You know, that's fairly standard, but the way you set it out, I think it's really easy to get to the bottom of. The one that I kind of zoomed in on a little bit is about cyber. Not just because of the threat environment to all kind of high-profile organisations at the moment, but recent cases, in particular, the difference between Marks and Spencers and Co-op. It kind of indicated that if you can detect quickly and you have a pre-prepared response plan, then the impact on your organisation can be smaller and your recovery can be faster. And this, it's probably a bit detailed for the risk register where my question's going, but my question was, do we have active detection prevention, and do we have a plan that we'd know how to pull the plug so we can stop any attack?
So I will try to answer that question. I don't know all the detailed technical side, but we did recently have a cybersecurity update from our head of IT. There is a lot of work going on in this area, so they're quite vigilant in having that monitoring. They run various programs that will pick up any risks, and they do act on those immediately. Quite often that could be implementing a new software patch, for example. So I think it's fair to say that, you know, they are on top of it, and it is given a very high priority within the council.
I mean, sorry, just to add to that, we do, and we are signed up to things like penetration testing, so the team regularly are aware of that. There are some organisations that produce national reports for us about where attempts have been made. So it's something that's live, and I think this is live for all of us as a leadership team, this issue and how we would respond. And those are the types of questions and discussions we're having with our IT teams and colleagues.
Thank you very much. That's very reassuring, because that's the kind of, rather than a kind of a passive response to it, it's the active, actually testing ourselves that gets that muscle memory ready, just in case. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Again, I thought this was very clear and very coherent, very well set out. Like it. So if there are no questions, the recommendation that we're being asked to consider is to endorse the corporate risk register and receive assurance on actions taking place, one of which you've heard from Stephen here, to manage the Council's most significant strategic risks. Can I have a mover for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Clark. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Norkie. All those in favour, please show. Thank you, Joe. Excellent report. Item 10. Good heavens, it's you again, Joe.
Thank you. So this one is financial waivers to the 30th of September 2025. So again, another one of the quarterly update reports that the committee receives, in line with their powers to maintain an overview of the Council's financial guidance and with best practice. This quarterly report sets out the details of the number and value of financial waivers granted during the period from the 1st of July to the 30th of September 2025. So the waivers approved during the second quarter of the year are set out in Appendix 1. The recommendation is that committee note the waivers approved to the procurement processes as set out in financial guidance. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from committee on this one?
Thank you, Chair. So we're asked to kind of note, because this has already happened, and they're all absolutely adequately recorded. If you read the detail, you can kind of understand the reason. I wondered whether or not it might be worth considering potentially adding a column that says how we assured of value for money, because what's recorded here is why we needed to do it, but not necessarily why we know. I think that most of them actually have covered it, but why we know we're spending council money well. And there's lots of different ways that we can get assurance on value for money. It might be because we're continuing a contract that was previously completed. It might be because we're just buying off a price list. There's lots of different ways, but I think it might be quite helpful just so that as the decision is made, not as it's reviewed, as it's made, that we know not only why we did it, but also why we're locked into value for money on an ongoing basis. That was just something I've seen before, so I thought it might be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. We can make sure that that is brought out and emphasised, made more explicit in the next report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because with financial waivers, it's quite complex, isn't it? Deciding whether something is value for money. It's what happens if you don't waive it. Because there are consequences to that as well, aren't there? Okay, does that answer the question?
No, absolutely, and I think, Chair, you're absolutely right. It can be sometimes the justification for the value for the money is the consequence of not doing it entirely, but that, you know, that in itself is part of the logic that officers will be thinking about.
Helpful conversation, thank you. Any other questions on any individual one or the basis, the principles of it? Thank you very much. In that case, the recommendation is that the committee note the waivers approved to the procurement processes as set out in the Council's financial guidance. I need to ask for a mover, please. Councillor Coates, and a seconder. Councillor Hadley. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe. And the final item on the agenda is Audit and Governance Committee timetable, which I think has been circulated, hasn't it? Any questions on that timetable from anybody? And I include our internal auditors in that. And these are external if they have a view. Nope. In that case, I think that is the end of the meeting. So can I thank all members, officers and anybody viewing on YouTube. That is the end of the meeting, and we will now close the meeting. Thank you very much.